I appreciate you being here. Please keep in mind what we are doing here at Bet On It, Shooting from the Hip and Food for Thought. We explore human ideas, philosophies, noteworthy information. This exploration is us thinking aloud, a thought exercise, jumping into ideas, examining and re-examining them. You will find we are prone to using adult language, expressing opinions. In keeping with that, you shouldn't believe anything we say. We are not experts of any kind. We're just having fun with these ideas, philosophies, and information in the hopes that you will find it fun, interesting, and entertaining. We encourage you to invest time in searching out these subjects and come to your own conclusions. Now, on with the shit show. I'm Beitula, and you're not. Slim, what's going on?
Not much.
Not much? So, I got an interesting subject that's for today. And I might have alluded to it in previous episodes, but today we're going to do this really super deep dive into physical limitations, or not the limitations, rather the physical limits of the human body. And so it'll cover, it's a lot of material, it's information dense, but it's all stuff that's super, super interesting. Okay, so anything you'd like to say before we get started? Yippee-ki-yay! No.
So you're not saying the limits of
no, it's,
what we can do, it's what we can withstand.
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
All right, so human physical limits. How long can the average person hold their breath for underwater? All right, so we're gonna do a really good dive into that. And interestingly enough, the average healthy person, you could under force, can hold their breath between 3 to 5 minutes underwater. Right? So somebody like that, they held their breath and you force them to, they could sustain a breath hold for that amount of time. Right? So just think, have you ever experienced anything like that yourself?
I've tried holding my breath for a long time. I think
underwater?
Not underwater. I think it's pretty easy to max out at 2 minutes and just go.
Well, it becomes this thing that you could turn it to an interesting game when you're swimming. If you do that with friends and stuff, play games so you can hold your breath the longest, that sort of thing. But don't remember doing anything like that when you were a kid. I remember we used to do stuff like that
when I was very young. Yeah.
Okay, but there are, however, risks of forcibly trying to hold your breath. Like so people who are athletic, natural, like who are already predisposed to being, or athletes, stuff, they'd have an easier time of it than somebody who, say, leads a sedentary lifestyle. It'd be very difficult for them. And then for the untrained, forcing them to hold their breath underwater can lead to like brain damage, fainting, high blood pressure, right? Even though it's well within their physical limits in terms of like the availability of oxygen within their body to sustain life for 3 to 5 minutes without actually breathing, right? So now we're going to get on to the well-trained breath holders. So we're going to look at free divers, breath holding, or skin diving, right? So these are the people who basically unassisted, don't wear any kind of like any kind of oxygen supplement. They run basically on whatever they can hold in their lungs, right? And so free diving is a form of it's underwater diving that relies on breath holding until resurfacing, rather, right? So no scuba gear. So that much is clear, right? The current world champion is HERBERT NITSCH, and the current freediving record holder he's been named as the deepest man on Earth, and the title was given to him when he set the world record for freediving at an incredible depth of 214 meters. It's 702 feet underwater in 2007. In this no-limit discipline, he surpassed this with a no-limit dive to 253 meters. It's 830 feet. Underwater?
Can't even imagine.
Okay, now to be fair, they're connected to a line, and the line's weighted, and so so their descent's accelerated. It's not fast, but because they have to give their body adequate time to adjust to the pressure, but they're getting to depth relatively quickly, and then the rise up is allows for so that they don't experience any kind of air pockets or air bubbles forming in the bloodstream, right? Because they refer to it for divers as the bend. So that's one of the physiological dangers of what they're doing. But they can do it in such a way that they have apparatus that takes them up and down. So essentially, still like all his energy goes into maintaining the breath hold, but still getting to 830 feet. That's insane. It's like. Yeah, and that's the no limit free diving. You go like that's somebody who's just like just playing with their life, right? But he's managed to do it twice, right? The discipline is the deepest free diving to be done, right? Like so that's what these guys do. So those who professionally pursue this is what they do. So this Herbert can hold his breath for 9 minutes. Right, so he's the deepest. So in 9 minutes, he's able to descend 830 feet.
Yeah, it's not like he's just sitting there. He has to spend the oxygen pulling himself down.
Again, it's usually weighted, so the weight pulls them down, and then they use a buoyancy, something that's buoyant, to help them so that they're not expending a critical amount of energy.
Okay.
Because if they did, there's that he might not make it to the surface.
Yeah, it's probably safer to spend the energy.
Well, and you know that there's divers in scuba tanks who are there with them, right? So, but again, it gets even more interesting. So we're gonna this Alexei Molokhanov is a Russian freediving champion and 24-time world diving champion, world record holder, and free diving promoter. So this guy, he achieved the first world record in 2008 in a pool discipline called dynamic apnea, in which he swam 250 feet underwater with a monofin on one breath. So a monofin is where they'll slide it on both feet into the monofin, and then they're swimming like, you know how whales, dolphins swim, where their entire body's like undulating like that. So they're using a single fin under single breath, and he managed to swim 250 meters. So the 250 meters is like about 800 feet underwater on a single breath. Right? So it speaks to like just how amazing the human body is, and given the right adequate time and the right kind of training, you can get it to do some pretty astounding things. Like, if nothing else, this clearly demonstrates that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just nuts, right?
I wonder how many laps in a pool that would be just underwater. And that's under
it's 250 feet, or sorry, he said 250 meters. So say it's the longest side is a giant rectangle. The longest side's maybe 100 meters, probably not 100. It's probably like 70 meters. So he'd probably have to go. He'd probably have to do one full lap to get that, like swim the rectangle, right? Okay, so the breath holding underwater on the 27th of March 2021, he broke the record for the longest time breath held voluntarily, with a staggering time of 24 minutes and 37.36 seconds.
I'm wondering how long the guy who did it involuntarily did.
Okay, so however, the 65-year-old freediver was determined to break the record and preserve with his training as soon as he could, or persevered with the training as soon as he could. So after he broke the record, he was like, I think I can break it further. So can you imagine, right? Like 24 minutes underwater.
It's incredible, literally.
So
You said he was 65?
56.
56, okay.
That's right. So, so in on the 28th of February in 2016, Spain's Alexei Segurov Vendrell, I apologize if I butchered that, I hope I said it correctly, achieved the world record for breath holding with a time of 24 minutes. So here's the other thing you'll notice about pushing the limits of the human body. Once you get one person to get to a particular, to make a particular break, suddenly what you find in rapid succession is a whole bunch of athletes who are suddenly capable of doing the very same thing. But it always starts with one person. Like prior to the breaking the 7-minute mile, doctors were like, no human could do it, the heart would explode, the body can't sustain it. Once the 7-minute mile was broken, then there was a rapid onset of individuals who could do a 7-minute mile, and then it became the norm, like common, right? So it's just, again, it speaks to this idea that limits might just be there to be broken, right? Like, so, and again, clearly, like, you see these different individuals who've managed to, hit 24 minutes breath hold underwater, right? So, all right, so now we're going to get on with the Iceman, Wim Hof. So, the Dutch adventurer they've been referred to, or like everyone knows him as the Iceman, but he's a human-like icicle. He has an incredible tolerance to cold. He holds Guinness World Book record for sitting in an ice bath for 1 hour and 52 minutes and 42 seconds. That's essentially 2 hours. Something most people could only tolerate for a few seconds. And he did that on May 7th, 2018. The Iceman is not only helped advance scientific understanding because he's allowed for himself to be constantly tested by biologists and academics to see exactly how is he able to do this, right? Because he holds that what he does is well within the limits of any human to do. He's just managed to find a way to train himself to draw that out of himself. So again, it speaks to this idea that physically, limits are just made to be broken, and that you can push the boundary of what you can and can't do. So among, and again, among these accomplishments, these extraordinary feats of human endurance, he has like 21 Guinness World Records. His most memorable achievements are running a half marathon. So a half marathon is 13.1 miles or 21 kilometers above the Arctic Circle, barefoot, only wearing shorts. Swimming underneath the ice for 66 meters. All right, so that's 6 meters would be say about 300 feet, maybe less a bit, right? So he's hanging by one finger at an altitude of 2,000 meters. Like, he's just this stuff's like incredible. Climbing the highest mountain in the world while wearing only shorts. Running a full marathon in the Namib Desert without drinking. That's 42 kilometers. That's 26.2 miles, right?
So he can deal with heat too?
Right? Standing in a container covered in ice cubes for extended periods of time, and shown scientifically that the autonomic nervous system related to the innate immune response can be willfully influenced, something that was previously unknown to science. Beginning with the scientific investigations first relevant, where it was about 2011 when he started bringing them in to, like, actively getting them to come and test him while he was doing his stuff. So we did an episode not too long ago where we got into oh damn, can't believe I'm forgetting now. I'm stalling, brain fart, damn it. At any rate, we did an episode where we explored. Didn't that episode where we did breathing?
Yeah, it was about the monks.
Oh, that's right, the
blankets.
Tumo, right, the
Yeah.
Tumo breathing. Sorry, my bad. Thank you. Took me a moment. I apologize. It's this old age. everything doesn't work as well as it should be. At least not nearly as good as Wim Hof, anyway. So he cites, and I've said this before, that his method in terms of breath holding, breath retention, and breathing is he derived from Tummo. But he's a guy who's, again, from early age had a fascination with Eastern kind of thinking and practices, and he basically, created a derivation of Tummo where he's able to biohack his autoimmune system or his autonomic nervous system, so to allow for him, sorry, let me rephrase that, allow for him to be able to induce, his immune system to act in such a way so that he doesn't suffer the ill effects of cold exposure that would typically kill like the rest of us, right? Okay, so super interesting stuff. Again, fascinating. Can't go on enough about the Iceman. So sincerely, I would recommend strongly checking him out. Vice did a short documentary about 45 minutes long, really good watch. I think it's from about 10 years ago, maybe 12. If any of you listening, if you're even remotely interested, check it out. Okay, so Paul Edward Anderson was an American weightlifter and strongman powerlifter. He was an Olympic gold medalist, a world champion, and two-time national champion Olympic weightlifting. Anderson contributed significantly to the development of competitive powerlifting. He would perform stunts such as hammering a nail with his bare fist and raising a table loaded with 8 men on his back. Right? The Guinness World Book Records, the 1985 edition, lists his feat of lifting 6,270 pounds, that's 284 kilograms, in a back lift as the greatest weight ever raised by a human being. Right? So again, another example of somebody who exceeded the limits of what we thought was possible. This guy's basically carrying like 3 tons.
Yeah, it's kind of insane.
It's mind-blowing stuff, and then so to me it's trippy, and it illustrates perfectly the idea that, like, if you find the right training and you give yourself adequate time, you can do astounding things. And I think my personal feeling is that's really true even for the most average of us. If they decided to do something like that and took the adequate amount of time to prepare, followed the right training methodologies, they could produce any kind of crazy, interesting things like this. So to me, it's motivational. The idea that people are out there doing this stuff that maybe that you can too.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try and lift.
I'm not lifting 3 tons on my back. There was an interesting little factoid that I came across that asked the question: can humans use 100% of their strength? And here was what was the response. Your brain sends pain through your body when you exert yourself, especially excessively, right? As a signal to prevent yourself from exceeding safe limits, right? But if you could muster 100% of your strength 100% of the time, the response was that you would completely destroy your muscular system and break bones in the exertion. That physically just couldn't be sustained. You would damage tissues beyond repair, right? So again, so then when you have an example of this, like this individual, like this Paul Edward Anderson, he was just performing astonishing feats of like raw physical strength. It was just mind blowing.
No, you said 3 tons.
Yeah,
a single ton is a little bit excessive.
It's 6,270 pounds is what he was lifting. 2,000 pounds is a ton. So that's 3 tons. Right? You just go like, come on. All right, so I just want to mention Usain Bolt because he's not nicknamed the Bullet for nothing, right? He is the fastest runner on the planet as of May 21st, 2022, setting the world record for the shortest 100-meter sprint, and his sprint time was 9.58 seconds.
So he broke his last record. Wasn't he at like 10 seconds or 11 seconds?
Well, wait. There's another. I'm just trying to get through my notes because I unintentionally separated. I thought I had it all on the same page, but there's another. There's another sprinter who's noteworthy, who in 2007 had just under the 10-second mark, or just around the 10-second mark, broke the 100-meter. I'm just trying to find my notes. Sorry, forgive me for just a sec.
Well, if he's going 100 meters in 9.58 seconds, he's not a slow guy.
No, not at all.
It's kind of insane to think he can, what is that, 10 meters a second? Or, no, 1 meters. No, yeah, 10 meters a second. How do you do that? I'm trying to think through the, because you build up speed, he would have to start with an initial speed that's already incredibly fast. Like faster than I could run just as he begins.
Okay, so I'm sorry guys, just bear with me for just a sec here. Anyway, okay, I can't seem to find it, but I'll probably dig it out. Oh, wait, that's because it's right here. Yeah, okay, never you mind. So okay, we're gonna find it later. Damn it. So anyway, having said that, so again, so it speaks to this idea like pushing limits, that physically that might be part of the experience of being here. That we can do virtually anything, so long as you have the willingness to do it, and then you take the time to prepare, and then use the right training. You can produce fantastic effects, and it leads to this just amazing performances. Now, Usain Bolt was just raw speed, right? And 100 meters in just under 10 seconds. Then you have someone like Dean Karnazes, who's this, he's an American ultramarathon runner and author of the Ultramarathon Man, Confessions of an All-Night Runner, which details ultra-endurance running for the general public. Wait till you hear this list of accomplishments, it'll trip you right out. So running highlights and race results. Karnazes has completed a number of endurance events, mostly running events, but also a swimming event. Most notable achievements: ran 350 miles, that's 560 kilometers, in 8 hours and 44 minutes without sleep in 2005. What? He did what? He completed the relay, a 199-mile, 320-kilometer run from Calistoga to Santa Cruz 11 times. It's 199 miles, 200, basically 200-mile run. He didn't do it once. He's done it 11 times. Ran a marathon to the South Pole in minus 13 Fahrenheit, so it's minus 25 Celsius. Temperatures without snowshoes in 2002. Ran a marathon in each of the 50 states in 50 consecutive days.
Oh my God.
In 2006. So you ran 26.2 miles every day for 50 days. My feet would fall off. Other athletic achievements: winner of the Badwater Ultramarathon, which is 135 miles, 217 miles across, check this out, Death Valley, in 120 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 49 degrees Celsius temperatures. It's 120 Celsius, so I think it would be like 49 Fahrenheit, right? So, in 2004, with 5 other top 10 finishes from 2008 to 2008. Winner of the Vermont Trail 100-mile endurance race in 2006. overall winner for Desert Race Series 2008, American Ultra Running Team World Champions 2005, 2008, 148 miles, 238 kilometers in 24 hours on a treadmill in 2004. 11-time 100-mile one-day silver buckle holder at the Western State Endurance Run. All right, so and the list goes on. It's not the end of it. There's more. Like he's swimming across the San Francisco Bay, and that's rough water. So again, it speaks to the idea that as humans, no one's expecting you to do any of this stuff, but that you could do significant or produce significant physical performances out of probably the most average of us, so long as, again, proper training at a reasonable amount of time that you could pull that off, right? Yeah. So there's this guy, Matt Whitehead, and he wrote in 2015 the 10 design perfections in the human body. So, and I think because I think he recognized that, like, as much as you hear people complaining about their backs and their this and their legs and all this stuff, the fact of the matter is that there's, and this is universally true for, it's universally true for all of us, that our bodies are designed in such a way that it can perform some pretty astounding functions. So we'll get into them right now. The first of the 10 is an 8 load joints. So all that really means is that the 8 major load joints are the 2 ankles, 2 knees, 2 hips, 2 shoulders that are aligned vertically and horizontally to perform perfect right angles, perfectly designed for balance, essential for walking, running, jumping, and moving around the earth. Which without a symmetrical musculoskeletal system would make it awkward, if not possible, to navigate the world. Right, so you have these joints driven by great musculature, and it's perfectly suited. And we've stated this before, I've stated this before on shooting from the hip, that we're perfectly designed to interact in this 3D reality and environment that we find ourselves living in, and so efficiently to the point where we can walk, run, jump, swim virtually anywhere on the planet. So I think we lose. It's easy for us to lose sight of the fact that, like, we're actually pretty amazing. It's downright astounding. So I'm kind of impressed. I'll be really honest with you. I've always had a healthy respect for human physical ability, but when I was putting together this note package, I was like going, wow, man, like, we really are fantastic. And it's a shame that we can't see ourselves more in that way, right? That we have this capacity to do just amazing things. It's mind-blowing, man, as clearly illustrated, right? So number 2 is a perfectly curved spinal column, so that the curves of the spinal column are designed in such a way that it's meant to, the reason it's like that is for shock absorption and for translating, like, kinetic energy from the upper half of the body to the lower half of the body and out to each of the extremities. So you go, it really, again, you see that, again, we're perfectly suited for this environment. We find ourselves living in this 3D reality that it speaks to the fact that maybe we are meant to be explorers of it, right? So 3, we'll get into a multi-purpose pelvis, which is amazing because the pelvis has, like, 8 planes of movement. So it moves like this, like this, like this, like this. What's the other way that moves? Like this, like that, this and this. So I think it's 8 planes of movement that it has. So it allows for maximum mobility and use of your legs, right? It allows for the locomotion, for swimming, walking, running, skipping, jumping. All that stuff is because of the shape and design of our pelvis. Its role as it's a stabilizer for the upper and lower body, so it works perfectly to that end, and and it also allows for us to be successful at throwing, grabbing, pushing, and pulling. So it's the thing that allows for us to be able to do amazing and astounding things. And it's perfectly designed for supporting a growing fetus for the 9 months of gestation, and shape-shifting to allow for a 7 to say 8 to 10 pound infant to be born out of women. So like I'm going, come on, how could you not see this thing for what it is? The human body is amazing. It's astounding. I'm impressed with it every time I investigate it, look into it. I'm blown away by it. Okay, so number 5, it's super digestive and energy system. So humans can eat the largest variety of food, so we're considered an omnivore. More than any other animal on the planet, and then we have the ability to digest a wide variety of foods. Humans also possess the amazing ability to utilize whatever we eat for energy. Humans can live, survive, and thrive on high fat, high protein, high carbohydrate diets. Right? So we have great capacity for that. Number 6, strong and sensitive feet. You're going to find this super interesting. The human foot ankle has 26 bones and 33 joints, and it's both complicated and simple in its design, and it's perfectly suited to be able to adapt to whatever surface you step on, right? That it'll bend and it'll actuate itself in such a way that it'll adapt to the surface, right? So allowing for again for us to have a good connection to whatever surface we happen to be walking on. So it's a complicated design and function, but with a simple purpose, and that's to give us stability and in movement. The foot is the human body's primary connection to the earth. It is sensitive to the surface beneath it and gathers information instantaneously and then adjusts accordingly. Right?
I'm not too surprised about that part. I just find it interesting that our feet, like you're saying, it kind of conforms to the surface we're on.
Well, to a degree, so it maintains these contact points because it doesn't sit flat.
Right.
So think about the tissue pad underneath your toes, the toes, and the heel,
yeah.
and then that arch that it's supposed to have, and then because it's made up of so many different bones, it articulates in a way that it adjusts to like ground. What ground is flat except paved ground? Right, so it's typically ground is uneven and stuff. So it's adaptive. It adapts to the surface for the purposes of allowing for us to maintain balance and stability while we're mobile.
Yeah. Sorry to add this.
That's okay.
I heard something interesting that once you go in water and your fingers start to prune up, that's an evolutionary reaction, so you can actually still have grip underwater.
Yeah, that it actually dovetails into the aquatic ape theory. I think we covered that. Didn't we just do that recently? Aquatic ape theory. I'm surprised it didn't come up in it. Yeah. So the pruning of our fingers. Some scientists speculate that it does that so that it creates frictionless contact with stuff that we're grasping that's wet, that's in water, right? So that it's a design or evolutionary design function, right, of the skin to be able to do that, to prune up because again, water being frictionless, right, to a degree.
Yeah, if we had to walk through marshes or something, I could see that being a small.
It might be hugely, it might be very advantageous. Although you're never going to be walking through a marsh or something. Okay, so I want to talk about some interesting things about like pressure on your feet when you run is as much as 4 times your body weight. So that again, so now we talked about how they're, how sensitive their feet are to the ground and can articulate to a degree to accommodate to the ground. But they're also durable. They take a freaking beating. So when you run, your feet are absorbing the impact of 4 times your body weight. So it's astounding. Again, another thing you go like, it blows my mind. That's a lot of impact and strain on your feet, especially considering that most people take about 180 strides per minute while running. That same pressure impacts the joints, of your ankles and knees, which can lead to long-term health problems. Paying attention to your gait and the pressure is applied in the best way to combat this. So again, so in terms of like, I don't run anymore because I'm missing an ACL. But when you are running, that you can take about 180 strides. The average person takes about 180 strides in a run per minute. So that's significant. Again, and the feet are taking a beating, the knees and the hips, because you have ascending and descending forces from the impact of your feet hitting the ground. You're carrying your body weight, and then gravity acting on you. So it's 4 times as much pressure. That's astounding. And then still they manage to do their job.
Yeah, you still have to run straight, keep the right form, even under those pressures.
Yeah, man. And so again, it speaks to how considerable the human body is. Okay, so you use 200 muscles to take a single step. So I've said this before, it's a completely integrated system, your body. So and it's funny because when you exercise, you often break up the body into quadrants in terms of like addressing like what type of exercise to use to produce a particular effect. And here it's clearly stating that for you to take a single step, so much of the musculature contributes to you being able to do that, right? So there's like 600 muscles in the body, so like a third of them contribute to walking. That's a lot of walking might not seem like the most intense form of exercise, but it's still a whole body workout. Every time you take a step, you use about 1/3 of the muscles in your body, and not all of them are in your legs. While most of the muscles used are those in your thighs, calves, and buttocks, you also use your stomach, pelvis muscles for balance, and that may even use your shoulder muscles, especially if you're power walking, right? So now swinging the arms becomes important to generate that kind of mobility. The average person walks about 70,000 miles in their lifetime. Most Americans walk around 5,000 steps a day. Even if you're not trying, you'll probably end up taking about 2,500 steps just doing your day-to-day activities. If you meet the off-stated goal of 10,000 steps a day, you'll end up walking more than 130,000 miles in the course of a life, right? So again, things that it's right in front of us, we take it for granted, and yet it's super astounding. So no sense of appreciation nor gratitude, and that's something might be worth focusing or cultivating, some kind of appreciation for the physical form of what you are, right, as a human being. Okay, 7, perfect adaptation and repair. So the human body is a stimulus response organism, meaning we are constantly responding and adapting to our environment and all stimuli, including physical forces and stresses, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, what we eat and drink, everything we do and interact with, right? So, and I've often heard it described as a use it or lose it kind of thing, in terms of like the way that the adaptive nature of the body. And I would even argue that so the sooner in life that you mobilize your body on a regular basis, and the longer you do that for, that not only can you do more, but you will not only do you do more, but you'll end up allowing yourself to continue to do more, right? So as you age, it allows for you to maintain the mobility, a youthful mobility, well into your more advanced years. So it gives you the capacity to be able to engage in a really physical, dynamic, and meaningful way well into your senior years. It's that wonderful a machine. So if you provide adequate stimuli and you fuel it well and you look after it, it can run effectively and efficiently for a long freaking time. But unfortunately, we live in a world where how we fuel the machine is based on like how much money somebody can generate while you're fueling the machine. So then the drawback is that you end up creating a lot of issues related around diet and and how it negative can, depending on the type of foods that you're consistently eating, how it has a negative effect on the body. But that's the individual responsibility. So if you take the time out, fuel it well, give it adequate rest, condition it adequately, it does fantastic things, and it'll continue to do them for a long, long time. So here's another interesting little tidbit about the human body. Humans replace about we have about 30 million to 30 billion, 300, sorry, let me try that again. 300 billion to 500 billion cells a day and are in a constant state of repair, rebuild cycle. The human body is perfectly designed to respond and adapt to our environment. Again, I think it makes us, if you're looking, if form follows function, then we're perfectly designed to explore the reality that we find ourselves living in, right?
Yeah, I could totally see that. We run, we climb, we jump,
all of
we
it,
swim.
yeah, all of it, and then again, just from these statistics that that we're presenting, that how astounding it really is to be in the physical human body. This is an amazing thing.
Yeah, apparently we have some great control over internal temperature.
Well, that's what Tumo. That's what again, right? The adequate amount of.
Oh, I was talking about the guy who ran through the Arctic.
Yeah, okay, but Wim Hof also did comparable things, and he's a guy who's essentially used a form of meditation to biohack himself. But that Carnessus, what he did was just a result of like somebody who's completely present, and so guess what? Running became a form of meditation, and so that correlates. And and if you listen to the guy talk, that's how he talks about running. Right, so that's why he's able to do it, and to do it to the level of proficiency that he has, which is extraordinary, right? Like just mind-blowing stuff. You go like, what? So remember, when we did the episode on meditation, virtually anything can become a form of meditation. It's just about being present and paying attention to what you're doing. So if he's running constantly and his mind is completely present on the running, then that's a form of meditation, right? I do declare that's something awesome. I think it's, again, astounding. He illustrates the very thing we talk about, right? Okay, so we'll get on to number 8, amazing hands, right? So a hand can deliver amazing amounts of power and force quickly, while also being able to be productive, delicate, intricate, and exact minute movements. The human hand can produce about 3,000 pounds of force, given depending on who you ask, right? And a punch, and is capable of intricate movements needed to do brain surgery or to play the violin to perfection. So we know that our hands are really super astounding at grasping and holding. So again, something else that we completely take for granted, we just have no gratitude for. We just completely ignore, right? And then it allows for us to experience the world in a very dramatic and a physical kind of way. So it's awesome, right? Like being human, having a human body is astounding. And so for any of you who think otherwise,
what if they have hoofs instead?
Well, then they're not watching this show. If they got hoofs, they're not watching this show. Okay,
mouth breathing, hoof wearing, dogmatic looking.
So we're gonna just jump into 9. 9 is the ability to compensate. So compensation is an actual term used in medicine if what the body will do is it'll make allowances for like tremendous damage that prevents the body from functioning in the way that it was designed to function. So then all the other systems, all the other muscles will act to compensate, to allow for things like mobility and stuff, say the loss of a limb or a severe damage to the body. And your body will compensate that. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because it also leads to, like, once you're doing things because there's a physical deficit, it can wear down the systems a lot quicker because of the the fact that it's compensating, but the compensation allows for you to be able to continue function. So again, something interesting. You can lose function in a limb, you can lose portions of the limb, you can or parts of the body, and still be able to function. So we see it all the time. Again, it speaks to just how astounding we are, right? So and then now on to number 10. So he goes so far as to say that we are born athletes, right? And even for those of us who go like swear that they're flat-footed, I'm not athletic, the potential is there. So that's the argument that he makes, right? So it's not that you can't, it might be more that you won't, right? And so maybe in light of all of this, maybe we might reconsider. Any of you who'd sit there and just who've never made an effort to lead an active life, you don't have to go to the gym. You just have to find some form of physical activity that's challenging and engaging, and then it's on some level meets your requirements and your sensibility, so that it's something that you can find some measure of joy to do, and you can do it for a lifetime, right? So it's worth noting. All right, so again, I think that it speaks to all this untapped potential that resides in the physical body. So often in shooting from the hip, we talk about the capacity, like all the potential and capacity that exists in the individual, psychologically, physically, and spiritually. Well, this perfectly illustrates the physical component, right? So here's a little sad fact. Only about a third of adults reach the minimum required guidelines for weekly physical activity. Even worse, fewer than 5% of the adults in the United States engage in at least 30 minutes of physical activity each day, and about 1 in 4 aren't active at all. So 25% are like, don't do anything. So all told, more than 80% of adults fall short of the recommended guidelines for aerobic and strength building activities. So it's, again, that clearly illustrates how much for granted we take it. Canadians are no better. How active are Canadians? 40% of Canadians aged 25 to 64 say they do less than 30 minutes of physical activity per day, while 6% of Canadians get no exercise at all. 37% of Canadians exercise from 30 to 59 minutes every day, while 8% say they're physically active for over 2 hours each day. On average, people in Quebec get the least amount of exercise, with 64% of the population of the province getting less than 30 minutes of exercise per day. And in terms of like time committed to it, I often hear, I've often heard it said that an hour a day is a requirement to maintain real physical ability in one's life. So and those statistics clearly indicate that people they're not even halfway there for the most part, right? So again, something to keep in mind, and whether you agree with it or don't, ultimately being physically active has a profound effect on your physical health, and choosing not to, that you suffer the consequences of that. And I think most of the people who don't, they're okay with it, whatever it is. But the sad fact is that you know, after everything that we've talked about so far, that you can see, like, Jesus, there's no limits to the things that you can do once you've decided to do them. Just gotta, as I always say, just gotta show up, right?
Since we're a fully fleshed out system, if you don't exercise, your body's going to compensate in other ways that might be negative. Like, it's at least a conversation there.
I would agree. So I think it behooves everybody then to try and find a way to, and again, remember, you get to dictate what passes for that level of activity, but the best guideline is something that'll drive your heart rate up. Right, that's what you need. That's what's really healthy.
Probably
right?
Something that's somewhat enjoyable, like tennis, would be a good one.
Yeah, great example. It doesn't matter what it is. That's for you to figure out. Like, so you whatever it is that does it for you, and then actively pursue that. So it could be Who says you can have to play one form of racket sports? You could do tennis and squash and racquetball, like, you know.
Just any sport. Really.
Yeah. So it does, again, it's largely dictated by you, the individual. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. It's just any form of physical activity, right?
Since it takes so many muscles to take a single step, maybe go to the park with ball, just kick it around.
Soccer's an amazing cardiovascular activity. So again, like, people are only limited by themselves. So there's no reason why you can't do any of it. Okay, so moving on. So I think it clearly demonstrated that, like, the value of the physical body and being embodied in the human body. It's a wonderful thing. Another way to emphasize the abilities of a body and to contribute to athletic performance in a significant way is you can use nasal breathing. And I highly recommend everyone take a look at the book, The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown. The simple, scientifically proven breathing techniques to help you become healthier, slimmer, faster, and fitter. All right, so if you ever get a chance, check out anything by Patrick McKeown. James Nestor's books, again, super informative, stuff that you can immediately apply in your practice. And now we're going to talk about applying it in practice. Since nose breathing produces more efficient oxygenation, it makes sense that it's preferable to breathe through the nose. Scientists have shown that nasally restricted breathing can be used during training to improve endurance, stamina, and performance, especially where economy is a key factor, where, like, economy of movement, preservation of energy, like all that stuff. Though that nasal breathing contributes to it in a real profound way, and it amplifies, like, your physical performance significantly. In 2018, Dr. George Dallam, a professor of exercise science, triathlete, and coach, some of the world's top athletes, published a study that examined the potential of nasal breathing in sports. One, breathing rate was much slower during nasal breathing than oral breathing, and when the athletes nose breathed during running, they took a 39.2 breaths per minute compared to the 49.4 breaths per minute of oral breathing. Right? So what does that mean? That means that then the activity is less stressful on your body, and you're able to accommodate the level of activity with fewer breaths required and with the same performance, if not better. The percentage of carbon dioxide in expired air, called end-tidal carbon dioxide, was much higher in the nose breathing trial, right? The end-tidal oxygen pressure was lower than the participants' nose breathe. Less oxygen is expired, and that means that more of it inhaled oxygen is being absorbed into the bloodstream, because you're not expelling. When you do the mouth breathing, you're expelling out a lot of oxygen. But if you're nasal breathing while you're performing an intense physical activity, more of it gets absorbed into the bloodstream. The speed of nose breathing was 22% lower when breathing was through the nose. So the slower breathing gives extra time for the oxygen to diffuse into the bloodstream. As air is pulled deeper into the lungs, it stays there longer. The 22% reduction in breathing speed also represents easier, less effort respiration. So you're not laboring to breathe. It's less effort. Even though it's more difficult to do, it produces a lot less effort to do, right? But it's just a matter of taking the time to adequately allow for your body to adapt to it, which we're going to get to. This creates an increase in blood. So nasal breathing during sports makes you breathe slower and takes in less air. This creates an increase in blood carbon dioxide, which in turn means better oxygenation of working muscles, including the respiratory muscles. So there's researchers who think that CO2 should not be treated as a waste gas, but as a hormone, because the higher presence of it in the bloodstream, all the red blood cells will release the oxygen molecules they're holding on to and make them more available for the working muscles. So there you go. So the only drawback is that in training, it can take from 6 to 8 weeks for your system to completely adapt There's some cases of people doing it in 2 weeks, but it's again, it's work. But once you do, then you can expect again significant output. If you continue to breathe through your nose, your lungs will extract more oxygen from the air you breathe, lessening your feelings of air hunger through better oxygenation. So it translates to fewer breaths per minute. Breathe only as much air as you need. You don't no over breathing. Breathe from the diaphragm. So that's diaphragmatic breathing, which we all did when we were infants and we first came into the world. You ever see a little baby and their bellies are constantly moving up and down? That's because that's how they breathe. That's how we all breathe. So it wouldn't take long for your body to remember how it does that if you nasally breathe and then you use your abdomen as the bladder to draw air in and out instead of the chest, because North Americans are notorious chest breathers, right? So having said that, so again, it's incredibly beneficial. The benefits of and when you nasally breathe, you get enhanced nitric oxide productivity into your lungs from your sinus cavities, triggered by the mechanical action of breathing, the nasal breathing. It increases aerobic capacity, reduces hypertension, increased insulin sensitivity, and glucose. Let me try that again. Glucose tolerance and capillarization, the formation, development of a network. It causes the creation of more capillaries for the benefits of breathing, and angiogenesis, development of new blood vessels, and even long-term potentiation, a process by which synaptic connections between neurons become stronger with frequent activation. Right? So that means enhanced learning and memory and neurogenesis, stimulating of the brain. Okay, so are you convinced yet that the human body is an astounding machine or not? And that you're using it for shit? Right? It could be a rich component to your rewarding life, and you just basically abuse it. Or not. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I just noticed how many pages we got left. I'm feeling a little physically abused.
You'll be okay. So nitric oxide through nasal breathing regulates autonomic functions like heart rate, respiration, blood pressure, digestion, along with mood, sleep cycle, fluid balance, and reproduction. So it has a huge impact across the board. So I can't stress the value of nasal breathing. And I shit you not, when I am not on camera and I'm not speaking, all I do is nasally breathe on top of the meditation that I do, right?
I was gonna ask, what kind of things cause younger children to stop the nasal breathing?
Well, it's mostly like it's a result of, like, to a degree, like stress, anxiety, nervousness, because when you're under duress, you'll go through a process of, it's referred to as apical breathing, it's chest breathing, because that allows for rapid breaths, and so that's panic breathing. And so because so many North Americans, like adults, I can't remember the statistics now, shoot, you'll forgive me, but it's a significant number are apical chest breathers. So they're breathing between 15 to 17 breaths in a minute, and what's considered a healthy range is between 4 and 6 breaths a minute, right? So, and then when you do that, when you're breathing like that, it triggers the autonomic nervous system that you're under duress, and it starts dumping stress hormones into your system. It starts proliferating your bloodstream because it's thinking it's under duress. It has to fight or flee. So under those conditions, it's enormously negative. I can't even begin to like. So all the benefits I just read off, if you're chest breathing, has the opposite effect. So it's hugely debilitating to be able, like, it doesn't even saying that, it doesn't accurately describe how bad it is. So I can't stress it enough. Don't believe me, but check out Patrick McKeown's work, James Nestor's work, any experts on breathing and respiration and exercise, you'll lose your mind when you start looking at the information. You'll go, oh my God. Right? From mental state to the way the body runs, everything is affected by the way you breathe. So if you're not nasally breathing and you're a knuckle dragging mouth breather, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. Huge negative effects. Okay, so sorry. Let's move on. So there was a documentary from about 15 years ago. I'm guessing it's 15 years ago. It might have been maybe from 2010, so it might only be like 13 years ago. And it was called Fight Science. So it was when MMA first exploded in its popularity. And so they were running this program, and I loved this opening statement, and I'm going to read it to you. It strikes 4 times faster than a snake. It kicks with more than 1,000 pounds. That's 453 kilograms of force. It can rival the impact of a 35-mile-per-hour car, 56 kilometers per hour. A car crash. It's the most complex weapon ever designed, the human body. Right? So, with regards to it being 4 times faster than snakes, snakes could accelerate more than 160 meters per second squared, right, to reach speeds approaching 3 meters per second. This enables the animal to cover the distances of 13 to 16 centimeters in 66 to 74 milliseconds. Right? So fractions of seconds. Right? So and your hands, your human hands, are 4 times faster.
This is the initial speed, though, right? Or are you saying like throw the whole punch?
Just again, it's about the movement. So snake strikes, and 160 meters per second squared, right? So, and the claim is that, and which they bared out through, they actually did it on camera. They ran it that the hand. I don't know if it moved 4 times faster, but the claim was that it moved 4 times faster. So again, it's only in this distance, think of that. But in terms of how it moves, not necessarily punching, it's just the movement of the hand, explosive movement of the hand, the distance it covers, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, like I was thinking someone throwing a javelin, their hands move pretty quick when they're...
Yeah, but that's a full range of motion. Where you think about combative stuff like throwing punches and stuff, the range is shorter. So to go from a bent elbow to a straightened arm, you're doing that, and think about that distance that's covered. You're doing that in nanoseconds. You're like milliseconds, fractions of seconds, right? So it's been reported that the average punching speed, which analyzed. For MMA fighters at peak fitness, that ounce for okay, so this is going to be a bit confusing, but for the amount of speed, the speeds of like say 32 miles per hour can or generate punching speeds of say 25 miles an hour. These are professional level fighters and boxers and martial artists. And it's the amount of, like, for ounce, the human bone is stronger than steel. So if you do like 1 cubic inch of bone can withstand the weight of 5 standard pickup trucks, give or take a few pounds, right? So when the specifics to snap a piece of skeleton takes about 4,000 newtons of force to break the typical human femur. So the femur is the longest, densest bone in the body, right? So the bones are incredibly tough, earning a 5 on the Mohs hardness scale, right? And diamond is like 10, right? So when you're walking or jumping, this again speaks to the strength of the skeleton, right? Because we talked about that when we were talking about running. It experiences the loads of 4 to as much as 20 times a person's body weight, depending on the activity from running and jumping. So, and it's to a degree, the bones absorb that impact, or in part, like also the mechanical action, the muscles moving, they absorb that load, right? So and then we talk about these punchers now whose hands are moving between 25 miles to 32 miles an hour, right? So the average punch generates about 120 to 150 pounds per square inch, or 360 to 450 pounds of total force, right? So when you think about that, that the fast punch can take between 60 to 100 milliseconds to complete. As fast as it goes. Like, this is just me doing it slow, but as fast.
It's like 0.1 seconds.
Yeah, it's a fraction of a second. So I've often heard it described that how many punches can again, it'd be a seasoned, a well-trained puncher or striker can deliver 5 punches a second, per second, right? And then think again with on average, say 360 to 400 pounds of force per square inch, right? It's just, again, super astounding shit, right? It's just, you know, the Guinness World Record holder for the fastest punch was a guy named Keith Liddell, and he did 45 miles an hour acceleration for his punch, right? So the boxers can generate up to 5,000 newtons of force with a punch, more than exerted by half a ton on Earth's surface, right? So the kinetic energy of punch varies greatly. While beginners might only be able to muster measly 37.5 joules of energy, experts can deliver over 400 joules, an amount roughly equal to getting shot by a handgun. So that's the force on impact, right?
Yeah.
So can you imagine, right? Now, a study of 70 boxers found elite level fighters could punch with an average of 700 to 76 pounds of force. And again, it varies from individual to individual, but this is a range, and what it illustrates is, again, how astounding the body is, that the kind of things that it can do, right? Like, it's just incredible, right? So the hardest hitting punches, some of them are registered at 1,300 pounds of force on delivery. So you're breaking bones, right, from the impact, right? The UFC heavyweight champion it was from a number of years ago, Francis Ngannou. He was a heavyweight, and his striking power was compared to 92.84 horsepower. His punch. So it was claimed that it was as powerful as a 12-pound sledgehammer swung overhead and impacting something, like getting hit by a sledgehammer. Can you imagine, right? So the way the forces mentioned are generated in a punch, they call it the impulse momentum relationship. So it's another way of saying that the punch doesn't happen just in the arm, or the kick for that matter. That you can that torque and rotation and recruitment of your muscle, your body mass, amplifies the force on delivery. So just extending your elbow and leading with your shoulder is not what these guys are doing. That the rotation and torque at the shoulders is like a baseball pitcher throwing a baseball. That the wind up, all that force from the wind up translates up and across the body, out their shoulder, and then out their hand, pitching the baseball. A punch is essentially the same way. So the position of the feet, the torque and rotation of the feet, the rotation of the hips, and the rotation of the upper body, that's recruiting the mass of the upper body, and then all that potential energy ends up at that point of contact of the fist. Right? So again, super astounding statistics. The kind of stuff where you go like, man, this is mind blowing. Agree, disagree, don't care.
No, I agree. I can't visualize it without actually seeing the
Well,
fighter.
next time you're watching any kind of MMA or UFC, whatever it is, just pay closer attention to like how they're moving, and how they're moving in terms of the way that they're delivering their punches and kicks.
Yeah, no, I've been paying attention to that. I think I mentioned the one fight I watched before. I noticed in stature the one person seemed more present. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, you can
Like-
tell like someone who's dialed in a zone, the flow state, that they'll tend to perform better, right, than somebody who's distracted or their mind's kind of a bit everywhere, right? So mental, again, I've often heard martial arts referred to as 90% mental and 10% physical. A fight is essentially the same thing. So being present is a significant advantage, and then if you can and then in combination with significant ability, well-conditioned body, and a good technical skill, suddenly become unstoppable. It produces that, right? So that's what you can expect. So I want to get on to kicking, because kicking's, again, another crazy thing. So an average kick from an adult delivers about 1,000 pounds of force. Experts in the martial arts can generate up to 9,000 newtons, able to deliver as much as a ton of force. So that's 2,204 pounds of force through a kick, a well-trained kicker, right? So an average kicker can do, an adult can probably produce about 1,000. Somebody's well-trained, again, you're talking about, the kind of force that breaks bones, man, right? Like, again, super amazing stuff. The average person can generate kicks that travel about 60 miles per hour. Athletes and martial artists can generate kicks that exceed 70 miles per hour. So well-trained combat sports fighters and athletes like soccer players can generate kicks up to 80 miles per hour, right? That's more than 33% over what the average person can do, right? So it's, again, super, super fascinating. Here you are, you inhabit and you live in this thing that, given the right training and conditioning, it'll produce like just astounding abilities, right? Okay, so now we're going to move on to how much damage can a human body take. Right? Well, before we do that, in terms of knocking the wind out of somebody in the due course of a confrontation, that it's less about the amount of force that you deliver. So this will be the last comment on like punching and kicking. It's less about the amount of force you're delivering and more about the technique, because the idea is to cause the diaphragm, which is this really wide muscle that contributes to breathing. You want it to go through a spasm, and then when it does that, it's what empties the lungs of air, right? So that's more about a well-placed punch or kick that will produce that effect. But like I said, it's got to be really well placed. It's not about the amount of force. It's just about delivering it and it landing at the right, in just the right spot. Make sense?
I think so.
You've never had the wind knocked out of you?
No, I have. I just haven't.
Well, okay, so the wind, when that happened, regardless of what caused it, it wasn't the action that caused it. The action triggered the diaphragm to spasm, and that's what knocked the wind out of you, right? It's just a little interesting little tidbit I thought you might find kind of worth noting. Okay, so, and then a knockout punch to the head. So the knockout occurs as a result of the whipping action and the rotation of the neck and the head. So when you're struck, so think of the punching and the amount of speeds as these guys are punching at. When your head whips to one side or the other that fast, that dramatically, it actually bounces the brain around inside the skull. And so that's what produces the knockout. Because if it's dramatic enough, it'll cause the brain to basically have a short circuit. And you're out. Make sense?
Yeah, I think I've heard of micro-concussions, something along those
Yeah,
lines.
so it does lead to this. So just to give you an idea of what kind of rotation speed you're talking about, the head has to spin from 0 to 43,000 RPMs in just a second, and it has a 25% chance of knocking a person unconscious. So when that happens, when your head rotates that quickly, as a result of a punch or just being whipped about, there's a 25% chance that it'll produce a complete knockout. Right? So that's 1 in 4. So it's not every time you tag somebody that way, but the chances are good, so it's worth taking a headshot, I guess. Does it make sense to you? No? Don't care?
I don't plan on.
You don't plan on taking any headshots?
Not today, no.
Okay, so we're going to move on to how much damage the body can take, which is, again, these are super interesting little guidelines or tidbits, factoids that are interesting. A loss of 30% of body weight mostly ends up with death. So typically, it will produce like death. So if you drop about 30% of your body weight, then you're kind of done. The rule of 3. So 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, or 3 weeks without food, the result is death. Just how much punishment can your body take? Just how far can the human body be pushed? When do the laws of physics step in and take precedence over biology? We're going to find out. How cold can you get? The normal body temperature varies between individuals, is typically just over 37 Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, like the average temperature of our body. Should this drop by even a small amount, then hypothermia sets in. So 37% or 37 Celsius is the normal functioning internal temperature of the body. If it drops to 36, reaction times and judgments become impaired. It's like you're intoxicated. If the internal body temperature drops to 35 Celsius, you will be unable to write your own name and even walk, and walking will be very difficult. If it drops to 33 degrees Celsius, you may become completely irrational, doing strange things like stripping your clothes off, behaving like like you're out of your mind. If it drops below 32 degrees Celsius, most people will collapse, becoming unconscious. When their core temperature drops to around 30 degrees Celsius, that's basically the beginning of the end. Right? At that point, is given to me temperature dropping. So when that happens, your breathing rate goes to 1 or 2 breaths a minute. So sustaining function becomes incredibly difficult, right? And at 28 Celsius, cardiac arrhythmia and irregular heartbeat sets in, and by the time you have cooled to 20 Celsius, your heart will have stopped beating altogether. So it's kind of a trippy thing. But doctors always, it's this interesting thing that I didn't know, that doctors are, I don't know where these doctors are, but they say you aren't dead until you are warm and dead. So if you're cold and dead, you might not be dead. Do you get what I mean by that?
I know about freezing people, but I don't know if they have any way to bring them back.
Okay, well, okay, so in 2001, a toddler was revived after wandering in -20 weather. Her heart had stopped for 2 hours and her core temperature was 16 degrees Celsius. And they completely revived her.
How do you revive someone like that?
Well, I can't imagine the process, but it'd be slow warming, and then you'd have to monitor functions. You'd probably have to provide like some kind of external air supply, like forcing air in and out of the lungs, which means like one of those masks they put on with the big, you ever seen them before, the mask, and they got that big ball and they squeeze the ball, forces air in and out of the open mouth and through the nostrils. You'd have to do something like that. And then it might even, I dare say, like might even require you using like jumpstart the heart, right? So I again, I couldn't say specifically, but there is cases of people, like you said, in 2001. It's just recently happened. Well, recently, 22 years ago. So don't be caught outside in the cold, right? How much blood can you lose and live? A healthy adult has between 3.8 to 5.6 liters of blood. You can lose up to 15% of total volume rapidly without any immediate effects. Above this, and your pulse will become more rapid and you may feel dizzy, irritable, or cold. At around 40% loss, your blood pressure is too low to refill the heart chamber and the heart goes into ventricular tachycardia, a fast rhythm that can be fatal. Right? So the theoretical limits of like blood loss is about 50%. So that would be like 1.9 liters to 2.8 liters, right? And the record is 75% of blood. So that would be like basically like losing, like 3 liters of blood. How much water can you drink in an hour? 10 liters. 10 liters. The most water you can drink in an hour without diluting your electrolyte levels, resulting in seizure or death. Right? What is the hottest courier you can bear to eat? What is the hottest courier you can bear to eat?
Oh, curry.
Curry.
I thought you said courier.
No, I'm sorry. Did I say courier? I might have. What is the hottest curry you can bear to eat? So the active ingredient in curry or chili is capsaicin. And more capsaicin present, the hotter the curry. So check this out. Although capsaicin does not actually cause a chemical burn or any direct tissue damage, the impact to the nervous system it's such a powerful stimulation that it borderlines on being an allergic reaction. So when you have food that's hot, it's not because it's like hot, like it's going to burn you like heat. It's because it produces a borderline allergic reaction, and then the reaction is like incredibly painful, and it's where the uncontrolling streaming eyes and runny nose and upper body spasms, severe difficulty breathing for 30 or 45 minutes. So this is an interesting little tidbit here. So ordinary Tabasco sauce is about 260 parts per million of this capsaicin, right? And the habanero chili contains about 17,000 parts per million of this capsaicin, right? So theoretically, the hottest curry you could make would be a bowl of pure capsaicin crystals. This dish would be 10,000 times hotter than a vindaloo, right? So to give an idea, the theoretical limit, 5 grams of capsaicin, was in a current record is 0.1 gram of capsaicin. In 2005, a guy named Blair Lazar refined 500 grams of capsaicin for chili peppers to create a sauce. He tried a single crystal. That's a 0.1 gram, and he said it was like having his tongue hit with a hammer.
Wait, how much would be in a normal, like just hot pepper?
Yeah, I just finished saying. So there'd be about 260 parts per million of capsaicin. So like it's like infinitesimally small amount of it would make the dish hot. Right, and so this guy did something. It was a bit unusual. He did like the equivalent of 0.1 grams of it in a sauce, and he distilled it down. He created 500 grams of this pure capsaicin, and then just a single crystal. And it felt like somebody hit my tongue with a hammer. So it's the allergic reaction that produces that effect. Isn't that crazy, right?
Yeah, I heard it was an evolution from plants. They would do it so insects wouldn't eat them, and then just so happens we love this stuff. I'm talking about like spicy food in general, though.
Yeah. Well, but there you go. So just super, like you said, when you start looking at the kind of things that we take for granted, it suddenly becomes this amazing like dive into like being a physical human being. is just this amazing thing. It's rather astounding, right? So I think we're going to finish with lightning strikes or electricity, and that'll be the end of it. So what's the biggest electrical shock you can take? In classical electrocution, the heart is shocked out of its beating rhythm in a process called ventricular fibrillation. Sorry, my tongue. Too much of it today for one day. And it's cold. It's not the voltage that kills, but electrical current. It's the lethal part is the amps. Threshold of sensation for humans is 1 milliamp, while a sustained current of 200 milliamps is fatal, able to stop a typical human heart weighing about 300 grams. According to Ohm's law, current passing through a conductor is given by voltage divided by electrical resistance, measured in ohms. The resistance of the human skin varies to about 1,000 ohms wet skin to 100,000 ohms dry skin. So the lethal voltage of 200 volts and 20,000 volts respectively. So a 400 gram heart, the most a healthy heart can weigh, might take up to 27,000 volts. Right? So high voltage, for example, 10% of lightning strikes are fatal. So only 10% of them produce a fatal outcome. Most injuries result as an arc flash, the intense heat, light, and pressure from the sudden heating effect of the electrical current. So, like, people, they've heard stories of people have their fillings knocked off and their shoes or nails blown off their feet or hands or whatever. It's the arcing effect of the lightning that produces that, but not the voltage, right? So how hard can so it's about 27,000 volts, right? So that's the current limit. And there's a U.S. park ranger, Roy Sullivan. He survived 7 lightning strikes between 1942 and 1977. So proof that you can.
It's not even a long time.
Dude, I'd quit my job. Parks are not for me. I get hit by lightning all the time. Okay, and one last thing I'd like to include is how hard can you get struck by a car and live? Again, it's a super interesting fact. At 30 miles per hour, the chance of surviving a car crash falls to about 27%. At speeds above 38 miles per hour, you have less than 1% chance of surviving.
Just above 35?
38 miles per hour. So I don't know what the conversion is in kilometers, but you could see like that. Well, basically, smash you into a pulp. So can I get a time check?
1 hour, 30 minutes, roughly.
Perfect time to bring it to a close. Anything you'd like to say?
I'm okay.
I'd just like to close by saying, like, don't take for granted this thing that you live in. This physical shell, in and of itself, is a pretty amazing thing, and I hope that we illustrated that today. I would just like to say in closing, question everything, including yourself. Seek balance, seek knowledge, seek understanding, become a renegade, individualist, humanist, critical, objective thinker. Thanks again. Until next time. See you.